Hi, my name is Arlene Chen, and I'm a pharmaceutical scientist in OPQ. My background is in microbiology, and so my work is focused on the quality assessment of both sterile and non-sterile drug about some of the common microbiology deficiencies for ophthalmic suspension drug products. So this is just our disclaimer stating that all opinions expressed in this presentation are based off of my interpretation of current regulations and guidance documents, and they don't necessarily reflect the views or policies of FDA. So an overview of my presentation. First, I'm going to give some background on manufacturing processes of ophthalmics. And secondly, we'll dive into some of the top issues that are focused or that are found during a quality microbiology review. So as I'm sure many of you are involved in the manufacturing of ophthalmics already know, the manufacturing of ophthalmic solutions can be quite complex. The majority of ophthalmic suspensions are filled using aseptic processing because terminal sterilization is not really feasible. To add to the complexity, the manufacturing process typically includes a combination of different sterilization processes to account for the soluble and insoluble phases that are later blended together to create this sterile suspension. This means that there's a combination of sterilization processes, including filtration, steam sterilization, gamma radiation, that each need to be optimized and validated for each component in order to get your final drug product. In addition, if there's a sterile drug API, additional care needs to be given that the API powder might be exposed to the surrounding environment during powder addition. Not only that, because we're using aseptic processing, the containers, closures, and equipment contact parts that come in contact with the various drug substances, the excipient phases, as well as the final drug product, they need to be sterilized separately and validated accordingly. And then similarly, because we're using aseptic processing, an environmental monitoring program with controls should be in place to ensure appropriate environment for aseptic filling to occur. And this can mean that such equipment, such as isolators, are used to improve the overall environmental control. So this is just a flow diagram showing some of the different components and how they would need to be treated differently to achieve a sterile product. So if you have an insoluble API, they're typically sterilized at a contract facility using gamma radiation or ethylene oxide, or if the API is heat stable, it can be created into a slurry, which then is sterilized in a small vessel using steam sterilization. Vehicles such as water for injection or WIFI or your purified water or other insoluble or soluble excipients, they can be sterilized by filtration and collected into a mixing vessel or which is then sterilized by moist heat sterilization. Also, viscous components, that are difficult to filter, you may also sterilize them with moist heat sterilization in an autoclave or within a manufacturing vessel. Or they can also be filtered at high temperatures. And then lastly, your container closure system can be sterilized in a variety of different ways, including gamma radiation, ethylene oxide, and moist heat sterilization. So for my talk, my colleagues helped to compile some microbiology information requests that were issued from 2019 to 2025 for ophthalmic suspension ANDAs, and an analysis of the 108 IRs that revealed some critical sterility gaps. As you can see from this pie graph, there's a decent range of issues, including IRs related to the overall sterilization validation, hold times and process controls, media fill, aseptic process simulations. And then just as a side note, a lot of these types of IRs are common to all types of sterile drug products. It is not just focused on ophthalmics. It's just that a lot of the times these ophthalmic products use a combination of these different types of sterilization techniques. So let's get into more details on some of these IRs. So let's start with container closure integrity testing. So typically the gold standard test is microbial immersion method. So in this method, your container closure system is filled with a growth medium, and then it's submerged into a microbial suspension with added pressure or vacuum. The container closure system is then removed and then incubated and checked for growth. Another method that is used is dye ingress, where the container closure system is filled with water or the drug product and then immersed in a dye bath. And this is typically like methylene blue and also exposed to pressure and vacuum. For this method, the amount of dye that is entering into the container closure system is measured. And that's either objectively using a method like spectrophotometry or subjectively, such as through visual detection. And that's like looking for a visual color change. So some of the deficiencies that are issued regarding these methods are due to method sensitivity and limit of detection of the method that is used. So the question is like, is the method as sensitive as the gold standard microbial immersion method, or is the analytical method subjective or objective? When you're visually looking at a breached unit, is there going to be a different impact based on which analyst is actually looking at the container closure system? Similarly, there's some advanced technologies that might be used for CCIT testing, and this could include high voltage leak testing, helium leak testing, and vacuum decay leak testing. And all of these have different types of limitations in these methods as well. So another common area of deficiencies relates to antimicrobial effectiveness testing, or AET. So ophthalmic suspensions are typically multi-dose, and that means that they contain a preservative. And so a lot of the times when we're looking at the stability data, the preservative content that was not at or below the minimum stability specification. So this data is important to ensure that the preservative is working throughout the proposed shelf life of the product. Therefore, we want to ensure that at least one primary stability batch is tested for AET at or below the minimum preservative specification. Component bioburden. So common deficiencies related to component bioburden include performing bioburden testing after filtration or other sterilization processes that have occurred. The pre-sterilization bioburden testing of all phases should be performed in order to get an accurate depiction of the overall bioburden of the product. And additionally, if excessive bioburden limits are used, a rationale should be used to justify the limits that were proposed. Hold times and process controls. So common deficiencies issued were related to not describing the maximum hold time for each manufacturing stage. And similarly, if an excessive hold time was proposed, supporting microbiology studies were not provided to confirm that unwanted microbial growth did not occur during the proposed hold times. So ensure to include those studies with your submission. The sterilization of container closure. So a lot of the time, sterilization of these systems are sterilized by gamma irradiation or ethylene oxide. And these studies, the common deficiencies that were issued were related to not performing them according to the standards recommended in ISO 1137 or ISO 11135. In addition, the IRs were issued due to the lack of recent requalification studies, dose audits, and bioburden results. So if you're using these methods, make sure to review the ISO standards in order to make sure that you have the appropriate dose and also the number of samples that are used during your validation. In addition, if there's been some time since your initial validation was performed, make sure that you include a recent requalification. Sterilization of manufacturing equipment. So one of the main deficiencies is that the validation was not performed with an appropriate number of runs for all equipment. And this is all equipment that comes in contact with a sterile product. So that could be your vessels holding the sterile components, the filling equipment, etc. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, not providing recent requalification results. So for moist heat sterilization, heat sterilization may be used to sterilize heat-stable excipients, or API, if it's in a slurry. And similar to what I said earlier about the sterilization of equipment, the excipients and API also need validations that have an appropriate number of runs within that validation. And then if there's been some time between the initial validation, to make sure that you include a recent requalification. Another IR that is commonly issued is that if the volume filled for that vessel is not representative of the commercial production, you want to make sure that you include that, and that might mean that the studies that were provided were using the exhibit batch size instead of the commercial batch size. So the volume filled is important because you want to know the impact that the heat and how heat is transferred throughout that entire container. If the API is sterilized by gamma irradiation, you want to ensure that the studies are conducted per ISO 11137. And this means for the dose setting that you're either using method 1, which is taking the average bioburden of multiple samples, method 2A and B, which is a fraction of positives, or the VD max 25 method, which is typically what we see. Many of the deficiencies issued under these categories are because the ISO guidelines were not followed. If the sterilization of the API is done by ethylene oxide, again, they should be conducted per ISO 11135. And this means that either it is done via the biological indicator bioburden approach, which is found in Annex A, or the overkill approach in Annex B. And if you are having a contract facility performing these validations, you need to make sure to include those in your submission. So some components, such as the Wi-Fi or purified water or other soluble excipients, may be sterilized by filtration. Note that the drug product formulation and or manufacturing condition may also impact the filter effectiveness. So that means that if there is a change in your formulation, like in a supplement or such, that filter may be impacted. And so a new validation study may be warranted. In addition, some deficiencies that were issued were due to the lack of viability study results. If your product is bactericidal, you still need to include those viability study results so that we can look at them. In addition, another common IR is that if the specific, at least the product-specific bubble point, or BP, was not provided. So a lot of the times the manufacturer will include a bubble point, but that is within water. And so, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes the drug product formulation can impact the filter components. And so a product-specific bubble point determination should be included. In addition, at least one filter with the pre-filtration bubble point at or near the manufacturer's minimum specification was not used, and therefore received an IR. If isolators are used within your manufacturing process, some deficiencies that are included are not, again, not having the appropriate number of runs. And I know that I've said that a bunch, but typically that means 3 or more. And also a recent requalification result was not provided. And also when you're including your validation of isolators, you want to make sure that you are putting your biological indicators in areas that are worst case. So media fill. When performing media fills, You want to ensure that an appropriate number of aseptic process simulations using the subject container closure system is provided. And typically, you want to make sure that if you're using a bracketing approach, that at least your subject container closure is within that bracket. In addition, if the maximum proposed filling duration is longer than what you actually demonstrate in the media fill, you want to make sure that you include a media fill that extends the length of the proposed hold time. So that means that if your hold time is 8 hours, you want to make sure that your media fill is not 7 hours and 50 minutes. Another common IR is that all the production operations were not simulated. And this is particularly true for aseptic powder fill. And this is because if that powder is sterile and it comes in contact with the environment that could cause it to become non-sterile, we want to make sure to encapsulate that. And then again, as I said in a bunch of other slides, if your initial validation has been performed quite a while ago, you also need to provide a recent requalification result. And typically for media fill, this would be every 6 months. So in conclusion, as I stated earlier, manufacturing ophthalmic suspensions is complex. And after compiling some of these common microbiology deficiencies, it's found that a lot of these submissions contain incomplete information regarding the different sterilization processes essential for demonstrating sterility assurance. And some of the common IRs include an excessive hold time or acceptance criteria, studies that were not performed according to ISO standards, missing or inadequate validation and or requalification data, and then overall media fill insufficiencies. So this was just a brief overview of some of the common deficiencies you might run into, but be aware that there's always going to be unique circumstances that could lead to other types of deficiencies. But in the end, make sure to check your FDA guidance and references to aid in your validation of your manufacturing process. So these are just some of the references that should be addressed when thinking about your submission. And then just a thank you to my coworkers, Dr. Judu and Jesse Wells, who helped prepare this presentation, and my supervisor, Ching-Ji Hu, and Division Director, Sharmista. And our next talk will be by Dr. Amit and Vicky Hayes.